Yeah, there we go. All right. So what was that experience like? How'd you find out that you're not going to be doing a show?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy because for a few days running up to that, we'd been getting more news about coronavirus and like hearing about different things shutting down. A couple of universities, I think, had closed at that point and sent kids home. So I was hearing about that from my friends at school. And like a bunch of groups that were going on tours to like Colombia or Morocco had like canceled their school tours. That was very crazy. And then we just got notice um, one day we got notice it was like one day instead of like we had rehearsal earlier that afternoon and I think in the evening we got the notice that the rest of the Salt Lake City run was going to be canceled, and then the day after that we got the notice that we were going to be sent home, and it was very scary. I mean, you guys remember what it was like just hearing about the news, especially like in the early days we didn't really know a lot about what COVID was, so
Did you
definitely very
expect it
scary.
to go on for 1+ year? Or how
No, for
long?
sure not.
Right. I mean, I that's nobody did, but uh, like how long did you think you were gonna be shut down?
I,
Did you
I
have
don't know what I don't know like if there was different news given to the Broadway cast, but I know like just especially like the whole world. I think the first estimate was like, oh, it'll be a few weeks, it'll be a
right?
month or two, and then it just kept on.
Hmm. And then Diamond, you weren't in the show anymore, I believe. But what were you doing? And were you auditioning for anything? Were you doing something else? What was
When the
that?
pandemic started?
Yeah.
So this is my dog Willow. Hi. Um, when the pandemic started, I was actually supposed to leave town the next week to start my next contract. I was doing Little Shop out of town, and yeah, COVID happened, and they canceled it. They didn't cancel the show. They just postponed it. They actually just canceled it like a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, they told us like a week out before we are supposed to go, hey, we're canceling your flights. It's not safe. You're not coming. So, yeah, it kind of it kind of sucked.
Sarah?
Hi. So, what is y'all's favorite piece of advice that has stuck with you throughout your career?
Hmm.
Your favorite what? I'm sorry, could you?
What is your favorite piece of advice that has stuck with you throughout your career?
I don't know. I mean, my career has been relatively shorter because I was out of school very briefly, and now I'm back in school, hopefully graduating soon. Um, I I guess my advice that something that's just really helped me throughout the years is just like get as much practice auditioning as you can. And I guess that differs for everybody, different depending on like your greatest strengths and weaknesses. But like I was always a very shy child. I'm more of an introvert for sure. And so just like getting practice, even like performing for friends was very scary. And so just practicing performing in front of people as much as you can, as tempting as it is to just like sing in front of a mirror all day, because that's much easier.
Um, Lexi?
Yeah, this question's for both of you. Did you or the cast ever messed up in any of the shows that you were in, including the Urban Hanson?
On stage mishaps.
Um, I didn't necessarily mess up on stage. There was one there was one show in Dear Evan Hansen I was on for Alana, and I was having a really clumsy day that day, I guess, and it was right when the emails came out, and I tripped over the panel. It's You'll Be Found reprise. We're singing it, and the Jared just looks at me and goes, and we're like laughing. It's a very serious moment, and we're crying laughing.
I mean, I find that hilarious how it's such a serious show that everybody is sobbing in the audience, and then I don't know if the audience could see it, but I mean, I'm sure I would get a little giggle out of it.
They were definitely laughing. It was, yeah.
Elena?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I wasn't in the show for super long, but while I was on tour, something to get used to, like going from city to city. Like a big part of my job was just learning the show, and that meant like watching the show a lot. And we would have like a designated room from which we could watch the show, but just like every theater without fail, I would get lost and end up like once I ended up like in the lighting booth with the sound guy. He was kind enough to let me stay there for the whole show.
Awesome.
Thank
Renee
you.
and Nikki.
Hi. Since I know you understudied both Zoe and Alana, what did you do to differentiate between those roles, character-wise?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like it was basically like I was very much for Alana, I just like drew very much on like my middle school self. I was very like type A, so kind of just like went back to that. And I think just like on a surface level, I mean, they're similar in that they're both teenage girls. It's like a very confusing time in your life, but just trying to try to find the different struggles that drive them. For Zoe, I think a lot of her struggle is more internal, and for Alana, she's a more confrontational person, and she's more willing to put her conflicts out there and be loud about it.
I think there's an aspect of acting that comes that is true to self. And I think what was easy and hard was finding what was similar about the two and what was different about the two. They do have very different sensibilities. One is very like, and the other one's kind of like, I don't want to be bothered. But I think there are both parts in every person. So I think tapping into both those parts was pretty easy for me.
Awesome. Nikki?
What was your audition process like for Dear Evan Hansen?
Mine was very quick. When I auditioned, they were looking for someone right just then. So I had my pre-screen, then I had another audition for it. Then I got maybe 3 callbacks, and that was all. My dog's crying. That was in like November. I got the job in December and started in January. So it was very quick for me.
Yeah, similar thing here where like they were looking for somebody to replace Lynn 80 who was just leaving the tour. So it was like the same thing where it was like within a span of like 2 weeks, like pre-screen, first working session, second working session, found out about the job and packed up and left school.
That's very quick compared to some people. I've heard months. I've waited a few months to hear from calls. Sarah?
So what is a strategy you use to help calm your nerves down when performing?
It sounds super cliche, but like literally just breathe. The body doesn't know the difference between anxiety and excitement. I guess kind of deciding in my brain like I'm excited instead of I'm anxious, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I really like that. This is also super basic. I will listen to loud music right before I go on, just to distract myself.
Sorry, I was trying to open Instagram to take boomerangs and Defying Gravity started playing. I'm wondering, I don't know if either of you have done any 2-show days, but Dear Evan Hansen being such a heavy show, how do you handle doing that and then realizing, oh my god, it's 4:30, I have to do this again in 2.5 hours?
I did a 2-show day as Alana. I think we have so much fun backstage that like yes, the show is very heavy, but you kind of have to find those moments of joy so you're not like walking around depressed all the time. So we have a lot of fun backstage. So yeah, you're kind of tired, but you kind of look forward to it because you're like when you're not on stage, you're having a blast, and when you're on stage, you're having a blast too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're bawling your eyes out for 2 hours. It's still acting and fun in some way.
And then?
Yeah, I never did like a 2-show day performing, but just from doing other like heavy shows, 2-show days. It's just about like taking those whatever moments you can in between the shows and just like reset, refresh, go out, grab dinner with your friends, take a nap, anything you can do to just yeah, naps are a big one. Yeah.
Do you guys have any audition advice that we can take for our next? And then I'll go to Katrina.
Oh God. I mean, again, like auditioning is a skill. Again, like I have always had trouble like being nervous before auditions, and that's something that's just really just come with time. Is auditioning for any school plays, any school choirs, just anything you can get your hands on, and just very much I think the best audition advice that everybody says, but it's so true, is that like the people in there are on your side, like they're looking for you to be the solution to their problem. So just present a solution, just be yourself, and if you are what they're looking for, then that's it. And also just learning not to take it personally if you're not the right fit for a role, like that's okay, there are a billion parts out there.
I think also like people try to pretzel themselves into like what they think a casting person is looking for, when really the most important thing that they're looking for is for you to bring your unique and special gift that only you can bring. So like it's so cliche, but truly going in and being yourself is the only way to do it.
That's so true. Like to speak to that more personally, like I really like Dear Evan Hansen was a show like I really never thought I'd be in. Like I got the pre-screen audition and I was like, I'll go just like to have like a cool professional auditioning experience. But like really did not think I would be cast as teenage girl. So like I just went in and had fun with it, and it worked out. So yeah, like Diamond said, just be yourself and don't worry about trying to fit what you think they want.
What do you guys miss most about live theater?
Everything. All of it.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, I've been doing some Zoom theater and like it's fun, but like it just doesn't. It's not the same.
It's not the same, right?
There's
Makes
also
sense.
certain energy that you get from an audience
Mhm.
that you don't get in TV and film. Like TV and film's fun and great, but like you don't get that there. There's a certain energy that you feed off of when there's an audience in front of you.
Mhm. I mean, I really liked doing Zoom improv with my high school, but I mean, I definitely agree. We had other improvisers laugh for us because there's no it was live streamed. But yeah, no, it's not the same. And I'm excited to go back to it. What are your favorite any backstage memories? Or hang on. Okay, yeah. Do you guys have any? Sorry, I'm changing the question. Like favorite fan experiences, like fan art, stage door, etc. What are your experiences with those?
I think one of my favorites, my last show, one of the fans, they sent me a box of cookies with my face on it.
Oh my
And
god.
that was it was a wild experience, but it was really fun. And I held on to those cookies as long as I could before I had to throw them away. But it was really cute.
It's just like the fact that the fandom is so engaged. Like for me, like getting fan art was very, very exciting. Like I have a little collage of all the fan art from Instagram that I got that I like pull up on my computer whenever I'm missing live theater a little too.
Awesome. Now we'll go back to the original question. Feel free to put questions in the chat. Backstage memories. Any memorable things that happened backstage, or yeah, all that.
I have one, I think. My dog's going nuts. It's not really my memory, but there was a cast member. I'm not gonna say who because I don't want to put them on the spot. They were on for Connor and forgot one of their cues for like what's the song where Evan cries? Words Fail, when Connor comes back on, and he forgot. So he was upstairs, and I was like, you have to go on, and he jetted downstairs and just made it on time. It was hilarious.
Yeah, this isn't particularly funny, but like it was just my first my put in for Alana was also Mark, who was like new on the tour, so he was like very much my buddy, was his put in for Jared, and so we just had a really good time like being in the dressing rooms and feeling very professional because it was also like he was also very new to professional theater, and so it was
Can you
Yeah,
talk
it was
about
nice to like get to do the tour with somebody else who was fresh to it.
right? Can you talk about like what a put-in rehearsal means and what it consists of? Since you're both understudies, especially for the same role, what that looks like in a typical day.
Yeah, so put-in was basically like your last dress rehearsal with like the moving parts, especially because of the show. There's so many technical elements like the panels and like the beds and the couches that move on and off. And so you just do a run of the show with mics and everything, and it was very exciting to because we'd done runs of the shows like in your show shoes and in your mic. But it was my first time, like going and doing all the costume changes and stuff for Alana.
Did you, sorry if I can ask, did you get a put in for Zoe?
I did not. We had just started like doing Zoe rehearsals, and then COVID hit. And
Yeah. I never got a put in for Zoe, but I did a lot of people's put ins as Zoe. So like when I went on for the first time Zoe, I never put on the costume before. I was like, I hope this fit.
oh my god, that was also really one of the fun things about put-ins was like, and like all of the rehearsals was doing it with all the understudies and just getting to see like different people's Evans, different people's Connors. Like it was very cool.
I mean, jumping off of what you said, what is it like performing with people from different people of the same roles? Do you just staying the same character the whole time? Do you change things? Yeah.
You stay within the guidelines you're given, but like with different people, it's going to change because like maybe somebody says a line that's a little funnier than the way somebody else said it. So you might like start cackling at a place where you never would laugh before. So it's going to change, but you stick within the guidelines that the directors give you and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, 100% agreed. It's just fun, especially because like you are spending so much time with these people. It's one of the things that like you never really get to do in high school theater is just like switch roles, and so that was kind of novel and very fun.
Sarah?
When did you know you wanted to be on Broadway / tour?
I don't know. I have run the gamut of like wanting to do different things as I grew up, but I knew pretty consistently that like I would like to act or sing or something if possible since I was like in elementary school. But again, I was very shy then, so it was much more of a pipe dream. But yeah, and I got older and like went to college and did not major in college, but in theater in college, but like have kept doing extracurricular stuff. So for a while.
Same for me. I started acting when I was 6. I didn't like get into it until like college age, but around 6, my mom put me in classes. I started auditioning a little bit. I like auditioned for Young Nala and Lion King, little fun things like that. But yeah.
How did you also grow your confidence with? Because you said in elementary school you were shy, and how did you grow from being shy to going on to tour and getting up to that?
That's a really good question, and it's something that I'm still working on. I don't know, definitely like going like taking classes. Like I've like my parents dragged me kicking and screaming to do church choir, and that's where I started performing it because I loved singing, but I just did not like singing in front of people. And just like doing church choir and school choir, and then eventually getting up the courage to like audition for a solo, and taking voice lessons was something that really helped because like just learning solid technique for anything just like makes you feel a lot more comfortable because that way if you do get nervous you just like have a good foundation to rely on. And yeah, same as auditioning, just going and performing as much as you can, and also just remembering to have fun with it, just remembering that you're doing this for fun and not because you have to.
I mean, being an understudy, especially in Dear Hansen, where everybody is a big part, how do you prepare? How do you manage it? Because I mean, I'm sure there are points where you just don't know when you have to go on.
Well, we would rehearse pretty consistently. We rehearsed like maybe twice a week. So we were always doing the show. We just did it without an audience.
Mm-hmm.
So we were always like ready to do it, just like waiting.
Alaina, do you have anything to add?
Oh yeah, I mean, what was kind of like a weird thing about going to the tour, especially like was that like I was so used to doing theater as an extracurricular thing, and so like I didn't have to memorize 2 tracks, so it was nice to realize that like, oh, I don't have to think about like classes anymore. So there's no like part of my brain taken up by like math or like by how to write an essay. It's like I just have to, my job's to know the show as well as I can, and that's it. Which is still a lot, but it was like nice to be able to focus on one thing and not split into too many channels.
Is it pressuring being, or how does it feel to be a replacement? Because I mean, you're not originating the character. You're performing the same character that somebody else has done, but I'm sure you're putting it in your own, like making the character your own. So what's that like, and what was that process like?
Well, I'll speak for me because when I joined, the original cast was still there, so that was terrifying. I was fresh out of college, like I graduated maybe 6 months, like before I like joined the show. It was really scary, but you kind of remind yourself that like they're human beings, I'm a human being, we're all here together. So if I'm here with them, I'm worthy to be here. So like, let me stop looking at them like they're like these gods, and let me look at them like people. That way, I can like do my work. But it was super scary. My first day, the stage manager was like, "Why don't you go up and say hi to everyone?" I was like, "By myself? You don't want to? You don't want to come with me?" But yeah, but everyone was. I remember, like for me, like everyone was super welcoming and really nice. So like it was scary, but it was nice.
Yeah, same. Just like Diamond said, like remembering that they're all people. I did not have the pressure of being there with the original cast. I think I would have died. But everybody who's done the show that I've met at least has been super super nice. And just also going back to what Diamond said earlier, like staying within the parameters of like what the directors want the role to be, but also just remembering that you don't have to mimic the people that you're understudying. Like you want to like hit all the same marks and like and fill the space in a similar way, but you still can find little ways to make the role your own.
I'll just remind everyone that you're able to put questions in the chat. But how do you, going back to auditions, how do you prepare? And we talked about advice, but yeah, how do you prepare for any audition that you do?
Well, the auditions for Dear Evan Hansen specifically were great because they gave us all the material, so I didn't have to, it was just like prepare like a cut of Requiem, a cut of Good for You, and then, just whatever sides they continued to give. But generally for auditions, I think, and this is something I'm still working on, is like having a really solid book of rep. Like one of my friends at school who also does theater, like did a summer program once where they made him like do like I forget exactly what it was like 2 songs from like each like genre of musical theater and like each era, and just like have them like really organized. And from what I've heard, is like that's a really good, but just like baseline, like having like a slow song and an up tempo that you really like to sing, and a monologue prepared at all times is a good foundation.
I think there's also just like if you are like receiving like sides and songs and whatever, just making sure that like you did the work, that what the character's going through, what you're saying, understanding what you're saying, understanding what you're singing about, all that kind of stuff. It makes a difference, and being as memorized as possible, of course.
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff really does make a difference. Preparation really like is appreciated.
Awesome. Well, to wrap up this breakout room, we can just say our if you have any dream roles or shows that you want to be in. That's always a fun wrap up question.
I don't know. I would love something that I hadn't gotten to do before college is like do new theater, and so I would just love to do like as much new theater as possible. It's really fun originating roles. But in terms of like existing rep, I really love Light in the Piazza. It's one of my favorite shows. I'd love to do any role in that. God, I love Heather. It's a super fun show. Just like, I don't know. I feel like it's so hard to say dream roles because like as you take them off the list, you realize that like you just have fun with really any role as you're doing them. But Light in the Piazza is a big one for me.
Yeah, I agree like wholeheartedly with that. I think my biggest dream right now is to do a Shakespeare. I've never gotten to do one in college, and like, I mean, obviously I wanted to do musical theater and all that, but you know, my training is in acting first, so I would love to do a Shakespeare.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We're going to switch groups. I'll do that in a second. All right. So the first thing I want to talk with you about is talked a lot with Alaina and Diamond with this, but being an understudy, you have more roles and you also have heavier roles that you cover. What's hard? Is it? I'm sure it's not easy, but
it's not easy. There's definitely a learning curve to it. There's no way to teach how to swing or understudy. When you cover multiple people, there's also a balance of watching the people perform on stage every night and trying to emulate their performance a little bit, because you don't want it to be completely different as to throw off the other actors that are on stage normally. But it definitely took me a couple months to get up to speed for sure.
And what's the memorization like in 3 roles? I could not imagine a 2.5-hour musical and just 8 characters in it.
Yeah. Memorization, absolutely crazy. Just so much rehearsal. The understudies would have like parties sometimes. Parties, I say. We would get coffee in the morning and then go sit at tables and just run through the scenes thousands and thousands of times. My favorite understudy moment, though, doing the 3 guys, is when we'll do a rehearsal for Sincerely Me. Because they will have you go, okay, you're going to do Evan right now. You're going to do Connor right now. You're going to do Jared. And then we all do it once. And then like, okay, everyone switch. And then you have to immediately like remember, oh, they're singing this part. And oh, he says this line. And oh, I have to move now. And that's always pretty silly.
Oh, yeah. Answering something from the chat. It's okay to ask repeat questions. Everybody's going to have a different answer, which is great, which is why I love doing these breakout rooms. Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, so what is your favorite piece of advice that has stuck with you throughout your career?
I think one of the biggest is to not try to emulate any other actor. I was talking to Gavin Creel once. He was visiting Michigan, and he was talking to me. He's like, you are not trying to be anyone else. We don't have another Matthew Kemp. We want Matthew Kemp. You don't need to be giving us Jeremy Jordan. You don't need to be giving us, not that I am giving you Jeremy Jordan, but you don't need to be giving us anyone else or any other performer. Just be yourself. And he also went on to say that the people behind the tables are always rooting for you in auditions, to try to take the nerves away and make that into excitement. But that they want you to be the solution to the problem. They want to cast you. So never go in thinking, oh, they hate me and things like that, which I struggle with to this day.
I'll ask this and then we'll go to other people. I don't know if you've done 2 show days before. Well, have you or? Okay.
In college, I've done them a few times. Yep.
How do you do a 2 show day and then, or like, how do you do 1 show with time and be like, it's 4:30, I have to do this again in 2.5 hours?
It's harder, especially when you do an Evan at some point in the day, like an Evan at a matinee, and then you're like, oh, now I have to do a Connor. Because you're already emotionally drained, your eyes are red and splotchy from all the crying, and then you're like, oh, now I have to be a completely other character. Really just in between the break is taking time for yourself, hydrate, and just try to be aware of where your body is, not to push too much. Because then you realize that you also have more shows coming up. It's not just those 2 that day, but you also have 2 more the next day if it's Sunday, tomorrow, and then your rest day.
Lexi.
can serve.
Mhm.
Yeah. Did you or the cast ever messed up?
Well, absolutely. Little things happen all the time. I mean, we obviously prefer that they don't, but sometimes like you miss a word here or there in the line, or like sometimes people forget a line, but then the other actors, we have really great company, so like they'll help you remember the line and then find a way to bring you back into the scene if you ever forget, things like that. But yeah, accidents happen all the time.
Thank you.
Of course.
When in theater, how do you look out for other people near you? I don't really understand.
When in theater, how do you look like take care? You take care of the people near you.
I can try and figure it out.
Sure.
Sarah, do you wanna go?
Yes, I wrote it down. Okay. When did you know that theater was something you wanted to pursue into a professional atmosphere?
Great wording and great question. I was a freshman in high school. I was performing in a production of West Side Story. I was playing Tony, and there was a moment in a Q&A after the show where a woman was talking about how she just lost a loved one of hers, and how when I was singing Maria, that somehow brought her back to the memory of her friends, and it said it really moved her. And just hearing that response moved me so much, to the point of where I was like, wow, I can touch people with this art that I love creating so much, and it brings me joy to do so. And I was like, yep, that I could definitely see myself doing that for the rest of my life. And then at that point, started doing more musicals and started preparing for college auditions.
So okay, so what I got is how do you look out for other people when doing theater, either on stage if somebody messes up, or in real life?
Yeah. Being aware. It's really hard in a long running show to go on autopilot. You hear it every day, so it just becomes a rhythm of sorts. And then if someone does something new or makes a new choice, everyone's like, oh, so you have to stay very active, and you can't ever become complacent, I guess. You have to always keep it fresh and keep things active. And also, I guess, to this question, I'm thinking more so like outside of the show as well, just always being there for people in your cast, seeing when someone's a little bit down, lifting them up as much as you can.
I lost. What was your audition process like?
So my audition process was relatively short compared to most people for the show. I had an initial audition saying waving through a window, and they were like, thank you very much. We might contact you. And I was like, great. Didn't hear back for a little bit, and then had a work session where they work on like all 3 of the characters' material for like over an hour. And then a little bit after that, I had my final callback, and then took the show.
How long did you wait for a call?
I'd say that whole process was probably about like a month and a half. After my final callback, I waited for about 2.5 weeks. Didn't hear anything. So I was convinced I didn't get anything. So when the call came, it was very exciting.
See, I mean, Alaina and Diamond had pretty much the same story. Also, very short process. I wonder if that was like for a lot of people on the tour, or just understudies, etc.
It totally depends on the role and the position as well. My friend Sam, who's the alternate on the tour, his process was over a year. He went in like 8 times, but really just depends.
Ooh, I like this question. What was your college audition process like, and what advice can we take? I know, I don't know how many other people want to go to college for theater, but I definitely do.
Absolutely. Cast the net very wide. I auditioned at 13 programs. It's not easy process, to say the least. I only got into 2 programs. I got into Michigan and Point Park. And I really do think it is sort of like a little bit of a dice roll, like a lottery kind of situation, because at some point, like schools can only accept so many people. But I do have some sort of like belief in the fate of it all, that you will end up where you need to be. Oh, and find good material. Good material that suits you well.
Right. Nikki, and then Sarah.
Hi, when did you like start theater and like know you like wanted to do it?
I did a production of Oklahoma when I was 5. My mom and I were picking up my brother who was in the production, and they saw me singing along to the songs in the theater while we were waiting for him. And they were like, "Oh my God, he's so cute. Let's add him to the show." So they like illegally in this community production added like a line or two for me in this production of Oklahoma. And I did that first show and then did it for a long time, took a little break, and then rediscovered it in high school.
Did you want to do it professionally, or did you just do it?
No, I did like a production of A Christmas Story, which was professional when I was in middle school. That's the one with Ralphie and the kid that sticks his tongue to the flagpole. That was me. I was the kid that stuck my tongue to the flagpole. His name was Flick. And I had a lot of fun doing that. But afterwards, I took a really long break from theater for a while. I had to miss a lot of school for it. I was out of school for like 3 months on and off to do this production. And I was just like, let me focus on school instead. But then rediscovered it later.
I'm trying to find GIFs I can use for this boomerang, but all it is that stuff. Sarah, go ahead.
This question is kind of similar to the last one I asked.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But what was the first thing you saw on stage that had a big impact on you that made you sure that this is what you want to do as a full-time career?
First thing that I saw,
or like felt, experienced something. Sure, I mean.
What a great question.
Thank you.
Probably my first Broadway show, which was the revival of West Side Story. I believe in like 2007 or something, or like 2008, something around there. A large part of the show was in Spanish, which was really cool, but I just remember being absolutely mystified. And I like wanted to stand after every number and applaud. And my grandfather who took me, he was like, "No, you don't stand in between." Like I didn't understand that etiquette. I was like, "Yay!" after like the opening number and things like that. He's like, "You don't need to do that." Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I just sent a message. What is a rehearsal process like? What does that look like for being an understudy, or like a put-in rehearsal?
Rehearsals. Put-in rehearsals are really fun. It's the first time that an understudy gets to be in costume and in the lights and with movement on stage with our discs and with everyone else on the stage, which I think the biggest thing for me was the lights, because we follow a lot of numbers on the front of our stage to make sure we're in the right positions, and there are spikes where like certain places you need to be during the show, and they're really hard to see when the lights are on. Specifically, I'm thinking about during Waving Through a Window, there are very tight lines that the whole company makes that Evan has to like walk through, and there's just movement patterns everywhere while like the stage is moving and all. You can't see anything when the lights are on. So it's really helpful to have the put-in rehearsals to be able to do that. But before put-in, you have months of rehearsal even before you get there.
Mm-hmm. What do you miss most about live theater? We all miss it. Is there a specific thing that stands out to you that you can't wait to get back to?
Specifically in the tour, traveling the country and sharing our show, there was something beautiful about bringing it to different places. Broadway is awesome. Broadway's really cool. Would love to do that at some point, but the tour just felt really special that we were bringing it to all these different places that would normally have never had that kind of show come through.
Mm-hmm. What kind of related? What was the process like when you got the notice that, hey, you're not doing a show tonight, nor the next 2 weeks or however long it was?
It was a little crazy.
Were you in the theater yet, or?
We were in the theater. We were in rehearsal. We our associate director was actually not with us that day. He was supposed to be, but he was still in New York because of COVID, I believe. But we set him up on like 3 different iPads all over the theater to watch us. And we kept having to pause rehearsal because they were going into huge talks with Broadway League, and Broadway, that was the day that Broadway shut down. And right before our rehearsal, Broadway had shut down. So they were discussing tours and all that at the same time. So we just kept having to sit backstage in groups in like our costume, shoes, and things like that because we were in rehearsal. It was pretty wild, but they were so awesome with helping us get home and things like that. And I don't know if they talked about it, but we get trunks on tour that we get to like carry our stuff with, giant trunks that go in one of our trucks. And they like got us extra bags to bring stuff in our trunks home with us and things like that. So they made the best out of a bad situation.
Sarah?
What is the strategy you use to help memorize lines and lyrics?
Especially for 3 parts.
Yeah, especially with 3 parts. A couple different things that I'll do is I'll record myself saying the other lines and then have that as a voice memo, and then listen to that and say the other character's lines in person, if that makes sense. Or if you have friends that love to help with that kind of thing, I'll have a friend record the audio for the other lines so I can have someone else's voice to work with besides mine. I also love to get, if it's like just a quick monologue or something like that, put a piece of paper in like a plastic bag or a Ziploc bag or anything like that and bring it into the shower with you. It's a great time to memorize for me, I guess.
See, what I do, my shower experiences is always just a Bluetooth speaker and just...
Yeah, oh yeah, singing as well, 100%, yes.
Right, I mean, luckily I have a water resistant speaker, so I can do that. What... I think we already touched base on that. Do you have any... I can't even remember. Audition advice? Did we go into that?
Audition advice, be yourself. People in the room always are there to root for you. But to cycle back to the college audition experience, pick good material. The reason I think that I didn't get into a bunch of places, or the reason that I like to tell myself, is that because I sang Screw Loose from the musical Cry Baby at half of my auditions, which was probably not the best choice for me.
Do you have a specific strategy you use to pick the right material for you?
I'll test it out in front of friends. That was a big thing for us. It was nice at college because we already had that group together, but we would just like perform little 16s or 32s for each other really quick, and people would be like yes or no really fast. That was quick, but also something that feels right to you, something that you feel happy performing, something that you think shows off your range and you.
Feel free to shout out questions, but what was your tour debut like? Who were you on for? Was it nerve-wracking? All that, your debut?
I went on a little bit fun because I was in rehearsal in St. Louis, Missouri as Evan that day. And then we stopped rehearsal halfway through. The associate came over and said, hey, so you're actually going to switch to Jared because you're going on tonight. And I was like, oh my God. Everyone was very excited for me, but we switched and quickly ran through things. And then I went on at the Fabulous Fox in St. Louis for Jared. This massive auditorium. Very nervous, but it was very, very exciting. And the first time I went on as Evan was in Dallas, Texas. My parents were actually able to be there, which was really cool. And Todrick Hall was there, which is so silly to me. Like, I'm obsessed with him. And he tweeted out that he was going to see evening performance of Dear Evan Hansen. And on Broadway, we don't have an evening performance. So we knew it was Dallas, and we all were very confused. But that was really cool. Jordan Fisher also ended up being there for a little bit at the end. It was a wild night. Definitely remember that forever.
What,
right, I was like, we went backstage and Todrick was there with Jordan Fisher, and I was like, how are you both here right now? Like,
replacing, I mean, you're not really replacing roles, but like, I mean, you're doing roles that people have already played.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you make the characters your own? yeah, and is it like stressful doing that? Or yeah.
You do have to err on the side of doing it as much as you can like the onstage company, as to not trip up the people who are on stage performing every night with those people, because you don't want to do something completely out of left field or they're going to lose their way and be confused. But you do have to bring yourself to the role. And I certainly think it'll be fun when we go back into rehearsals to find the roles again, because I think we're all different people now coming out of this year-long, maybe even longer pandemic. So I think it will be exciting to rediscover them for sure.
In a second, I'm going to press the close all breakout rooms button. Don't leave, because I'm sure we can wrap up with one more question. Sarah, do you want to maybe, okay, yeah. Sarah, do you have a last question?
Yes. Okay. When performing, what is a tactic to help you calm your nerves down? To help
calm them down, breath. If you will inhale through your nose for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, and then exhale for 4 seconds, or just do any sort of like breath work like that. Some people do it for different amounts of time. That helps me out a lot, recenters me, and I try to change the way that I'm thinking about the nerves. For me, nervous and excited are the same thing. It's just how I think about it. So if I'm able to change the nervous energy to excited energy instead, that usually helps me out a bunch.
So we have 20 seconds, but thank you guys all for joining in the Q&A today. Thank you, Matthew, for joining us. Thank you all.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you all who asked questions. Thank you for doing that. And we will see you back in the main room. Stick around. Recording is